Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be working on restoring this old axe head that I found. I lost my keys while I was working on cutting down a tree and ended up having to take out my metal detector to try to find them. I did find them, but in the meantime, I found a whole lot of scrap through the woods. And no joke, there was so much scrap that I ended up having to fill up the bed of my truck and take it to the dump before I found my keys. So this was one of the cooler pieces that I found, and I'm going to try to restore this. I'll start by cleaning this up with a wire brush on my drill to try to take off as much dirt that is stuck to this as possible before coming in with the sanding wheel and trying to smooth out the metal a little bit. I'm trying to go gently with this because I don't want to take off too much metal. I'm looking for any branding or logos that might be on this axe to indicate who made it and around what time it was made. The sanding wheel's working great. I ended up just using this for most of the work on this axe head. It doesn't remove too much material all at once, but it does a great job at smoothing out and removing the rust and trying to preserve what metal is there, so I'll use that for the most part. But in just a minute, I'll notice that there's a faint logo starting to come through the rust, and it's almost half of the way pitted, so you can't hardly see it. But what I was able to read was temper and perfect down at the bottom, and doing a quick Google search, I found True Temper Kelly Perfect Axe Head. It was made from 1930 to I believe 1970s, so that's pretty cool. Our house was actually built in 66, right around the same time period that this could have been purchased and lost out in the woods around that same time. Now I'm going to continue fixing this up. I'll make sure I smooth out the hammering surface. There were some dents as well as significant rust on the back of the axe. I've got that all smoothed out. Then I need to clean out where the handle's going to go. This is all rusty in here. There are some pieces of handle that are still left in there. I'll clean that all out and file down the rust so it's got a nice smooth surface for the handle to fit in here. Then I need to sharpen the blade. There's a lot of pitting and some of the blade was damaged by the rust where it was thin at the end. So I'm going to grind that down significantly, trying to get that edge back again and sharpen it so that I can actually use it to chop something. Now that just about finishes the axe head. I could take this the next step and bring out my welder and weld every single one of these pits and then sand it smooth so that it looks like it did when it was brand new. But I kind of like the pitting and the rust that's here. I'm sanding it down enough to make it functional again and make it so that I can use it easily without damaging it further. But I like the pitting, it adds some character and shows that this has been restored, and that's something that I kind of like. So I'm going to leave it that way and move on to making the handle. Now I've got some cherry here that I actually milled from a tree that was about 30 feet from where I found this axe head. I'll cut this down into a nice handle. I'll use my jigsaw to cut out the outline. It's going to be a nice long 36-inch handle for this axe. Once I have this all cut out, I'll take my router with a roundover bit and I'll run this around the edge. That will remove those sharp corners and start making this handle a bit more round and remove a lot of material. Now, even after the router is finished, I still need to do a little bit more work on this because it's too bulky. It needs to be thinned down and smoothed out a little bit more. So I'll take this outside with the sanding wheel on my grinder and sculpt this a little bit better. I'll also start taking off some material for that notch to go into the axe head, and that needs to be thinned down quite a bit more. So I'll take off some material with this. Then I'll finish this off the rest of the way with a hammer and chisel. The bottom of the axe head has a triangle notch that needs to be taken out. Now that I've got the handle whittled down to fit the axe, now I'll move on to cutting that notch so that the axe and handle fit perfectly. Now the easier thing would have obviously been to just buy a handle from a hardware store to put on this axe. It would probably save a little bit of time as well, but this step right here, cutting that triangle notch, would have to be done regardless because everything that I saw didn't have that notch to fit this axe specifically. So it would have been easier, but it still would have had to have some modifications to fit this axe. After a quick test fit to make sure everything looks good, I'm going to sand this down. I want to make sure that this isn't unnecessarily rough on your hands. It'll be nice and smooth and easy to use. Now it's finally time to mount the axe head to the handle. I'll first cut a slit down the center of the top of the handle for a wedge later. I'll take some 5-minute epoxy, mix that up, and spread that all around the inside of that axe head. And then I'll do the top of the handle as well, so that those two surfaces, when I slide them together, can already start to bond and hold together, even if the handle isn't perfectly snug in there. It is pretty close, but I want to fill any gaps that there might be in there from pitting in the rust and all kinds of things. So I'll cover that up completely with epoxy, slide it into the axe head, and then I'll do the same thing with the wedge. I'll cover that in epoxy and hammer that into that notch that I cut before in the handle. Once the epoxy is hardened, I went back and cut the wedge and the handle off flush, so that's a nice smooth surface on top. Then I'm going to take a few of these metal wedges and hammer those into the top of the handle as well. These seem to work really well. If you're interested, I'll leave the link down in the description below, but I've used these on a few of my hammers to tighten them up. Anything with these wooden handles works really well with these. So I'll hammer those in. I'll end up putting a layer of epoxy over top of that just to seal the handle and those wedges. And then I'm going to take it out and test it. So the first test went great. It's solid, nothing's moved. The handle and axe head are holding up really well. So I'm going to go ahead and stain this. To stain this cherry wood, I'm going to be using this cleaner here. It has an ingredient in it that reacts with the cherry wood and causes it to darken and age really quickly. So within a few minutes, this will completely darken into a nice beautiful cherry color. I'll spread this on, let it dry out, and then I'll come back with some woodworking oil just to seal that handle, and the axe head itself, I'll put some oil on that as well just to keep it from rusting further. And this will protect all of this from moisture and still be nice and soft on your hands, and that finish won't wear off. It soaks into the wood and it's there for a long time. Alright guys, that just about finishes up this restoration project. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Now all I need to do is put it back where I found it and let the next person find it in another 50 years. Just kidding, it's going back in my shed with all the other axes ready to do some work. Thanks so much for watching guys, I'll see you in the next one.